Greetings from Somewhere, Book 1, The Mystery of the Gold Coin. Chapter 1.
All stay in bed tonight.
Alright, fine. Chapter 1, The Surprise. So, what's the surprise? Ethan Breyer asked.
Yeah, what is it?
His twin sister Ella chimed in. Their mother, Josephine, smiled nervously. Their father, Andrew, reached over and squeezed her hand. Ella tried to guess what they were going to say. Was it going to be a new puppy? Or maybe cool matching bikes? Ta-da! We're moving, Mr. Breyer announced.
You mean to a new house?
Ella asked, confused. Mrs. Breyer shook her head. No, not to a new house. I just accepted a new job. I'm going to be the travel writer for the Brookston Times.
So why do we have to move? The Brookston Times is in Brookston.
Ella pointed out. The Times was our town's newspaper. Everyone read it. That's the exciting part, Mr. Breyer said. Starting next week, we'll be traveling to different foreign cities, so your mom can write about them. Foreign, like another country? Ethan asked. Yes, Mr. Breyer said happily. Like Spain, and England, and Peru, and India, and... Wait, did you say next week?
Did you say next week?
Ella interrupted. Yep, we're leaving next Sunday, Mrs. Breyer said. Next Sunday? Ethan exclaimed. What about school? And soccer? And our friends? And Grandpa Harry? Will we be able to visit them? Ella asked.
Well, what about soccer? And our friends? And Grandpa Harry?
Well, Mrs. Breyer paused. Not right away. We can stay in touch with everyone. And of course, we'll come back to Brookston. Someday. We're just not sure when yet, Mr. Breyer finished. Silence. Ethan put his fork down. Ella had lost her appetite, too. It'll be the adventure of a lifetime, Mr. Breyer said brightly. We'll see some of the most incredible sights in the world. Places like the Great Wall of China, the Eiffel Tower in France. Do they have soccer in China and France? Ethan cut in. Yes, of course. And as for school, we've already spoken to Principal McDermott. I'll be homeschooling you both, Mr. Breyer went on. Mr. Breyer was a history professor at Brookston University. He was super smart. He knew stuff like who invented the boogie board and the name of the first king of England. Still, Ella could not imagine their dad being their teacher. He didn't sing silly good morning songs like their real second grade teacher, Mrs. Applebaum. And he didn't serve green milk on St. Patrick's Day either. Mrs. Breyer stood up. Who wants dessert? Your dad picked up something special from Petunia Bakery to celebrate. I'm not hungry,
I'm not hungry.
Ella said quietly. Me neither. Can we go to the treehouse? Ethan asked. Mrs. Breyer cast a worried look at her husband. Ella and Ethan never turned down a treat from their favorite bakery. Sure, we can just save you some dessert, Mr. Breyer told them. Ethan and Ella jumped up from the table and rushed out of the dining room.
I think they found it in book 0.
Oh, the treehouse?
Mm-hmm.
Dessert was the last thing on their minds. Chapter 2. Was it all a dream? The twins crossed the backyard to the old maple tree. The sky was deep blue, with a sprinkling of stars. Crickets croaked in the distance. The air was cool and smelled like flowers. They climbed the rope ladder up to the wooden treehouse. Then they plopped down on the floor pillows. Worst news ever.
Worst news ever.
Ella declared. I don't get it. Mom already has a job with the Brookston Times, Ethan said. This is a different job, though. She'll get to travel, just like Grandpa Harry did, Ella pointed out. Grandpa Harry was their mom's dad. He was a famous archaeologist. That meant that he studied people from the ancient past by looking at buildings, artwork, and other things they left behind. When his wife, Grandma Lucy, was still alive, they used to travel all over the world for his work. Where are we going to live?
Where are we going to live?
Ella wondered. How can we leave Brookston and our treehouse and our friends? Ethan said. Ella hugged her knees to her chest. Hannah will probably find a new best friend while I'm gone. Hannah will probably find a new best friend while I'm gone.
Hannah will probably find a new best friend when I'm gone.
Yeah, Thea will probably find someone else to go to the comic book store with, Ethan mumbled. The twins grew quiet again. They had a million questions and worries swirling around in their heads, but no answers. Ethan gazed up at a map of Brookston on the treehouse wall. Their school was just down the street from their house. Also nearby were some of their favorite spots: the playground, the duck pond, and the big fountain in the town square where they made wishes. Next to the map of their town, the map of the world seemed so much bigger and so much scarier. Hello? Someone was coming up the rope ladder. A moment later, Mr. Breyer's head appeared in the doorway. What's the password?
What's the password?
The twins shouted at the same time. Spaghetti and meatballs? Mr. Breyer guessed. Wrong.
Spaghetti and meatballs. Wrong.
Ethan replied. I actually just came out here to get you guys. It's early bedtime tonight. Your mom wants us to spend the day tomorrow packing, Mr. Breyer explained. Ella looked at her brother. Maybe when we wake up tomorrow, we'll realize this was just a dream, she said hopefully. Ethan tried to smile. Yeah, maybe. Chapter 3. A Visitor. Exactly 1 week later, Ella woke up with a start. It hadn't been a dream. The Breyers were moving the next day. Ella barely recognized her bedroom. There were boxes everywhere. Boxes of books, boxes of clothes,
and boxes of poopy.
Boxes of toys and other things, like her seashell and shark teeth collections. The Breyers had spent much of the past week.
Did you know that if you touch the tip of a shark's tooth, you would bleed all over yourself, even in your eyeballs?
Whoa, I didn't know that. They had spent the past week sorting their belongings into 2 categories. Stuff they would take with them on their trip around the world.
You would get dig right away.
And stuff they would put away in the attic. While they were gone, another family was going to rent the house. Drip. Ella tried to picture drip. Drip. Ella tried to picture a strange kid taking over her room. What if he or she was a baby who covered Ella's desk with stickers? That desk was where Ella sat and wrote all her mystery stories, including her latest one, The Case of the Missing Diamond. Ella sighed and got out of bed. The doorbell rang.
Missing diamond.
The doorbell rang downstairs. A moment later, Mrs. Breyer yelled, Ella, Ethan, there's someone here to see you. Ella went out into the hallway. She saw that Ethan's door was still closed. She used their secret knock. 3 quick knocks, a pause, and then 3 more quick knocks. It was code for, "Hi." "Ethan, are you awake?"
Ethan, are you awake?
she called out. "No," came the reply from inside. Ella opened the door and went in. Ethan was in bed, buried under his soccer ball sheets. His room was a maze of boxes. Mom says we have a visitor,"
Mom says we have a visitor.
Ella said. "I'm sleeping," came Ethan's voice from under the sheets. Ella glanced around. "You still have a lot of packing to do."
You still have a lot of packing to do.
Ethan poked his head out. His wavy brown hair was sticking up. "That's part of my brilliant plan. I'm not going to finish packing. That way, we'll miss our plane tomorrow." Ella considered this. "I don't think that'll work.
I don't think that will work.
Mom is really organized.
Mom is really organized.
She'll make you finish packing."
She'll make you finish that.
Ethan groaned. "Come on, Ethan,"
Come on, Ethan.
Ella said.
I think that's the people that are going to move there.
Oh. Downstairs, their surprise guest was waiting for them in the living room. "Grandpa Harry!"
Grandpa Harry!
Ethan and Ella shouted. They rushed into his arms and gave him a big hug. Grandpa Harry lived in Fall Creek,
Ugh, I never would have got him right.
which was the next town over. The twins saw him at least once a week. "Good morgen," Grandpa Harry said merrily. He always greeted them in a different foreign language. "Is that German?"
Is that German?
Ella guessed. "Close. It's Swedish. Did I ever tell you kids about the time your grandmother and I stayed in a hotel in Sweden that was made entirely of ice?" That's the icy paw prints. "Didn't it melt in the summer?"
Didn't it melt in the summer?
Ella asked. "Didn't you and Grandma freeze?" Ethan piped up at the same time. Grandpa Harry laughed. "They rebuilt the hotel every winter. And no, we didn't freeze. But enough about me. I hear you kids are starting your big adventure tomorrow." The twins stopped smiling. Grandpa Harry knelt down in front of them. "What's the matter, my dears?" We don't want to go,"
We don't want to go.
Ella confessed. "I understand," Grandpa Harry said. "It's hard to leave everything you know behind. But guess what?" "What?"
What?
"Life is all about adventures," Grandpa Harry replied. "And there is a whole world out there for you to discover. A world full of ice hotels, castles, ancient ruins. I could go on and on. Brookston will always be here, waiting for you. Your house will be here. I'll be here." The twins nodded slowly. "Oh, I almost forgot." Grandpa Harry reached into his jacket and pulled out 2 packages. "I have some bon voyage presents for you." Ella knew that bon voyage meant "have a good trip" in French. Her mom used to say that to Grandpa Harry and Grandma Lucy whenever they left for a new destination. Ethan opened his present right away. Inside, there was a box containing an old-fashioned looking gold coin. It had a picture of a globe on one side and a hawk on the other. "Cool," he said, grinning. "Thanks, Grandpa. What does the coin mean?" But Ethan was interrupted by a gasp from Ella. "Thank you, Grandpa Harry!"
Thank you, Grandpa Harry!
Ella exclaimed. She had opened her present. It was a journal with a beautiful purple cover. "I know how much you love to write, Ella," Grandpa Harry replied. "I thought you could use this to take notes on your travels. It might come in handy for solving mysteries, too." Solving mysteries?
Solving mysteries.
Ella asked. What do you mean? Ethan piped up curiously. Grandpa Harry winked at the kids. I've learned that when you start a big adventure, you never know when a mystery might land in your path. Chapter 4. The Missing Coin on Moving Day. We have to be at the airport at 4 o'clock, Mrs. Breyer said, over Sunday brunch the next day. Our taxi will be here at 3 to pick us up. Ethan glanced at his watch. It was almost noon. They were having a farewell brunch with Grandpa Harry. Mr. Breyer had made pancakes. Grandpa Harry had brought strawberries from a nearby farmer's market.
Yum, yum!
Let's figure out our schedules for the next few hours, Mrs. Breyer went on. I have to pick up some last-minute things at the store. Andy, can you finish up the cleaning? And Dad, can you supervise the kids? I made a to-do list for them. Uh-oh, thought Ethan. One of Mom's famous to-do lists. I'll be glad to help them, Grandpa Harry said. Mrs. Breyer handed over the to-do list to Ella and Ethan. It was about a mile long. Ethan felt dizzy just reading the list. How were they going to get all these things done? To do. Pack your backpacks with activities for the plane. Check your closets and make sure they're empty. Same for the dresser drawers. Same for the bookshelves. Same for under your beds. Same for the basement playroom. Tape up all boxes labeled with your names. Mr. Breyer began clearing the dishes. Brunch was over. The day was flying by. Ethan wasn't ready to get up and go. He dug into the pockets of his Brookston Boomer's hoodie. Oh no, he cried out. What's the matter?
What's the matter?
Ella asked him. Ethan felt around in his pockets some more. Still empty. My gold coin! It's gone! It's probably in your room,
Probably in the room.
Ella said. No, I know I had it when we went downtown yesterday. I was wearing this exact same hoodie, Ethan said, worriedly. Grandpa Harry leaned across the table. Sounds like a mystery to me, he said with a twinkle in his eye. A mystery? We don't have time for a mystery.
A mystery? We don't have time for a mystery.
Ella complained. Of course you do. Why don't you give me your to-do list, and I'll start tackling it. While I'm doing that, the two of you can look for the gold coin, Grandpa Harry offered. With that, he took the list from the twins. He pulled his glasses out of his jacket pocket and headed for the stairs, humming to himself. Ethan turned to Ella. Now what? I want my coin back. Okay, let's think.
Okay, let's think.
We spent the whole day yesterday running errands with Dad.
We spent the day and with
Maybe you dropped it along the way.
maybe you dropped it.
Ella suggested. Great. It could be anywhere, Ethan wailed. Ella's brown eyes lit up. Not anywhere.
Not anywhere.
She reached for her new journal and a pen. She opened it up to the first page and began to write. Let's see. Yesterday, we went to the bakery first,
Yesterday, we went to the bakery first.
she said. Then the bead store, then the bookstore,
Then the bead store. Then the bookstore.
then the comic book store.
Then the comic book store.
What are you doing? Ethan asked. You mean, what are we doing?
You mean, what are we doing?
We are going to retrace our steps
We are going to try stuff,
and find your gold coin,
and find the gold.
Ella said excitedly. Chapter 5. And the search begins. First stop, Petunia Bakery,
First stop, Petunia Bakery.
Ella announced. A tiny bell jingled as she and Ethan opened the door. Inside the shop, the smell of freshly baked cookies made their mouths water. The bakery and the rest of downtown Brookston were only a few blocks from the Bryers' house. With Mrs. Bryer at the mall and Mr. Bryer busy cleaning, it had been easy for the twins to sneak away. Grandpa Harry had wished them luck and gone back to taping up boxes as the twins left. Mrs. Valentine, the baker, waved at them from behind the cash register. As always, the glass counter was filled with cupcakes, pies, and lots of other yummy-looking treats. I'd thought you'd left for your trip,
Thought you left for your trip.
she called out. We're leaving at 3 o'clock,
We're leaving at 3 o'clock.
Ella replied. Then Mrs. Valentine held out 2 chocolate chip cookies. How about a cookie on the house as a bon voyage present? The twins were at the counter in about 2 seconds flat. As Ella bit into the delicious cookie, she opened up her journal. Mrs. Valentine, when we were here yesterday, Ethan may have dropped a gold coin.
Mrs. Valentine, when we were here yesterday, Ethan must have dropped gold coin.
Have you seen it?
Have you seen it?
It has a globe on one side and a hawk on the other, Ethan told the baker. No, I haven't seen anything like that. Let me check in the lost and found box. Mrs. Valentine dipped her head behind the counter and rummaged around. While Mrs. Valentine was busy, Ella and Ethan searched the rest of the shop. They peered under tables and chairs. They scanned tall shelves packed with jams, jellies, and teas. They looked through the window display. By the time they were done, Ethan had found a couple of pennies, and Ella had found a rhinestone hairpin, but no gold coin. They brought the hairpin up to Mrs. Valentine. Goodness, I've been looking for that everywhere,
Goodness, I've been looking for that everywhere,
she exclaimed. Sometimes you think you've lost something forever, but it turns out it's right under your nose. Thank you so much, children. You're welcome,
You're welcome,
said Ella. But I will email your parents if I come across it. Ella and Ethan thanked the baker and said goodbye. Before they left, Ella opened up her journal and jotted down some notes. We didn't find the gold coin at Petunia Bakery. We did find Mrs. Valentine's hairpin, though. She said, sometimes you think you've lost something forever, but it turns out it's right under your nose. Chapter 6. Best Friends and a Soccer Ball. Ethan and Ella headed over to Bead Mania next. It was Ella's favorite store in Brookston. Ethan had no idea why. Who cared about making bracelets and stuff anyway? Maybe you should go inside alone, Ethan suggested. I'll search the perimeter. You know, that means the outside part, he added quickly. I know what perimeter means.
I know what perimeter means,
Ella snapped. Fine then, I'll just go inside and investigate by myself.
Fine. I'll just go inside and investigate by myself.
Investigate means look around.
Investigate means look around.
I know that, Ethan said, rolling his eyes. Ella headed into the store. Ethan decided to start with the flower garden in front. He got down on his knees and squinted at the dirt beneath the plants. He wished he had a metal detector. He saw an ant, a worm, and a ladybug, but no coin. Hey, Ethan! Ethan glanced up. His best friend Theo stood on the sidewalk, holding a soccer ball. The two boys had said goodbye to each other on Friday after their game against the Fall Creek Falcons. Still, it was nice to run into Theo one last time. Hi! Ethan rose to his feet. Is there a game today? Nah, I went to the park to kick the ball around. Nobody was there, though. Theo looked away. Ethan felt bad. He and Theo often went to that park together to play soccer on the weekends. So, what are you doing? Theo pointed to the flower garden. I'm looking for my gold coin. My grandpa gave it to me as a going-away present, but I dropped it somewhere yesterday, Ethan explained. Wow, is there anything I can do to help? What does it look like? Theo asked. Well, it's about the size of a quarter. It has a globe on one side and a hawk on the other, Ethan replied. Theo thought for a moment. I have a gold coin in my coin collection. It's an old train token. I actually thought it was a quarter. It doesn't have a globe or a hawk on it, though. Just then, Ella came out of bead mania. Sorry it took so long.
Sorry it took so long.
I didn't find your coin.
I didn't find the coin.
She turned to Theo. Oh, hi. Are you here to buy some beads?
Oh, hi. Are you here to buy some beads?
Nope, Theo replied. I'm on my way home. I have to study for that math test tomorrow. We'd better go too.
We better go too,
Ella said to Ethan. We still have 2 more stores on our list.
We still have 2 more stores on our list.
Yeah, Ethan agreed. Bye again, he said sadly. Bye, Eth, Theo replied. Just then, Theo tossed his soccer ball at Ethan. Ethan returned it with a perfect header. Theo jumped up in the air and caught it neatly. The 2 boys laughed and waved goodbye. I hope you find your coin, Theo called out. Ethan hoped so too. Soon. Chapter 7. A little bit of luck. Ethan and Ella's next stop was the Wise Owl bookstore. I guess you two didn't buy enough books yesterday when you were here with your dad, Mr. DeMarco joked when the twins walked in. On Saturday, Ella, Ethan, and their dad picked up some books for the trip. Ella had selected The Secret Garden. Ethan had chosen The Borrowers. Actually, we are here to solve a mystery.
Actually, we are here to solve a mystery,
Ella told Mr. DeMarco. Mr. DeMarco pushed his glasses up on his nose. A mystery? You mean something like from Nancy Drew or the Hardy Boys story? Exactly,
Exactly.
Ella said. Ethan's gold coin disappeared yesterday.
Ethan's gold coin disappeared yesterday.
So we're retracing our steps.
So we're retracing our steps.
I may have dropped it in here, Ethan added. A gold coin. I don't think I've seen one of those lately, Mr. DeMarco said. But let me look in my cash register. Maybe it got mixed in with the other coins somehow. Is it okay if we look around for it? Ethan asked. Of course. Take all the time you need, Mr. DeMarco replied. Ella and Ethan agreed to split up to search for the coin. Ella would take the kids' book room, and Ethan would take the main room. Once she was in the kids' room, Ella searched everywhere, but there was no sign of Ethan's coin. A girl with red braids wandered into the room. Her face was buried in a book. Hannah!
Hannah!
Ella called out. The girl glanced up. It was Hannah. Ella! Hannah exclaimed. The 2 girls rushed up to each other and hugged. "What are you doing here?" cried Hannah. "I thought you were gone." "We're leaving this afternoon,"
We're leaving this afternoon.
Ella told her. Hannah sighed. "I'm going to miss you so much. What's going to happen to our book club and our poetry club?" She and Ella were always coming up with fun clubs for just the two of them.
Look at Dada. I did this file right away.
She and Ella were always coming up with fun clubs for just the two of them. "Well, we can email our poems to each other."
Well, we can email our poems to each other.
"And we can email about the books we read too."
And we can email about the book we read too.
Ella said.
Look, I have a bind too.
"Oh."
Coloring in the squirrel.
Hannah nodded eagerly. "Yes, and you have to tell me about all the places you visit, and send lots of photos too. I am so jealous." "You are?"
I am so jealous. You are?
Ella asked, surprised. Hannah nodded. "You're taking a trip around the world. You're the luckiest person I know," she exclaimed. The girls exchanged one last hug before Hannah left to meet up with her mom. Ella took a minute to sit down on a beanbag chair and write in her journal. "I ran into Hannah at the bookstore. I'll miss her a lot. She says I'm really lucky to be going on a trip around the world. I'm starting to wonder if maybe I am." Just then, Ethan rushed into the kids' room. "Hey, Ella, guess what?" he said excitedly. Chapter 8. A Bright Idea. "Did you find your coin?"
Did you find your coin?
Ella asked her brother. Ethan shook his head. "No, but I just thought of something. Theo told me he added a train token to his coin collection by accident because he thought it was a quarter." So? Ella responded. "So what if someone found my coin and didn't look carefully at it? Maybe they thought it was a quarter too." Ethan said. "That's a good idea,"
That's a good idea.
Ella replied. The twins said goodbye again to Mr. DeMarco and left the store. They made a quick stop at Galaxy Comics next door, just to make sure the gold coin wasn't there. It wasn't, although the store owner, Mr. Max, gave Ethan a new comic book as a bon voyage present. Ethan glanced at his watch as they left the comic book store. The twins had less than an hour to find the coin and get home. They turned the corner and found themselves in the town square. It was a sunny spring day, and everyone seemed to be out. On one side of the big fountain, a man played jazz music on his saxophone. People stopped by to listen. They tossed coins into his open saxophone case. "Coins! Ella," Ethan said in a low voice, "what if someone found my coin and gave it to the saxophone player?" Ella's eyes widened. "Let's go check it out."
Let's go check it out.
The twins rushed over to the musician. They squeezed through the crowd to get closer to the case. Ethan bent down. No gold coin. The musician looked over at Ethan suspiciously. Did he think Ethan was a thief? "My coin's not there. Let's keep going," Ethan whispered to Ella. "Hey, Ethan.
Hey, Ethan.
I've been thinking about something Mrs. Valentine said."
I've been thinking about something Miss Valentine said.
Ella remarked as they walked away. She pulled out her journal and opened it to the second page. She pointed to what she had written. "Sometimes you think you've lost something forever,
Sometimes you think you lost something forever,
but it turns out it's right under your nose."
but turns out it's right under your nose.
Ethan read. He thought about this. What does under your nose mean? It means that something you've lost might be closer than you think.
It means something you lost might be closer than you think.
Ella told him. Maybe your coin is right under our noses.
Maybe your coin is right under our nose.
And we just don't know it.
And we just don't know it.
Ethan! Ella! Their neighbor, Mrs. Sanchez, waved to them from a bench. Her dog, Sugar Plum, bounded up to the twins, wagging her tail. Ethan and Ella had known Sugar Plum since she was a puppy. Hi, Mrs. Sanchez. Hi, Sugar Plum.
Hi, Mrs. Sanchez. Hi, Sugar Plum.
Ella said as the twins joined Mrs. Sanchez on the bench. Are you here to make a wish before you leave for your trip? Mrs. Sanchez asked. Huh? Ella asked, puzzled. At the fountain, Mrs. Sanchez said with a chuckle. You two have been throwing pennies and making wishes since you were old enough to walk. Why, I remember... Ethan, that's it!
Ethan, that's it!
Ella practically shouted. It's right under our noses.
Right under our nose.
Ethan glanced around wildly. It is? Where? What are you two talking about?
What are you two talking about?
Mrs. Sanchez asked, confused. We'll explain later. Come on, Ethan.
Come on, Ethan.
Ethan jumped to his feet and began weaving through the crowd. Ella followed. Where are we going now?
Where are we going now?
She asked her brother. To the fountain, Ethan cried. When they reached the fountain, Ethan leaned over and peered inside. He circled it once, twice, 3 times. There were hundreds of coins lying on the bottom. The water glittered like a quilt of silver and copper. Ethan swished his hand through the cool water. He saw pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. No gold coins. I don't think we're allowed to do that,
I don't think we're allowed to do that.
Ella said nervously. Just trust me, Ethan replied. A church bell rang in the distance. Ethan glanced at his watch again. It was 2:45. They had to get home or they'd miss their airplane flight. A cloud passed over the sun. Suddenly, a shimmer of gold caught Ethan's eye. A gold coin!
A gold coin!
Ella cried out. Ethan reached into the fountain. He pulled out the coin and studied it closely. On one side was a globe, and on the other was a hawk. It was his coin. He grinned and showed it to Ella. The twins high-fived each other. Mystery solved. Chapter 9. The Last Goodbye. Ella and Ethan got home just as their mom's car pulled into the driveway. Mrs. Breyer emerged with an armful of shopping bags. I'm sorry that took so long, she apologized. The twins exchanged a glance. Mrs. Breyer obviously had no idea they'd been gone for the past few hours. Oh, that's okay, Mom,
Oh, that's okay.
Ella said, trying to catch her breath. Yeah, Mom, no problem, Ethan added. Mrs. Breyer gave them a suspicious look. Did you get everything done on your list? Please tell me you did. Ethan and Ella began. Sure they did. Grandpa Harry stepped through the front door, holding a cardboard box. Come have some lemonade before you leave, he called out cheerfully. Mr. Breyer came outside too. His face and hands were smudged with dirt. Hi, Joe. Hey, kids. Sorry I couldn't help with your list. The basement cleanup took longer than I thought. Andy, you're a mess. Why, we're going to have to do a cleanup on you, Mrs. Briar joked. Mr. and Mrs. Briar went inside the house. Ella and Ethan rushed up to Grandpa Harry with big smiles on their faces. Ethan opened his fist and showed Grandpa Harry the gold coin. I knew you two could do it, Grandpa Harry said with a wink. The taxi was early. It sat in the driveway while Ethan, Ella, and their parents scrambled around the house to make sure they had everything. You're ready. You've got everything. Now go, Grandpa Harry ordered the four of them. Not much later. I'll do a last sweep after you're gone. All right. Mrs. Briar gave him a hug. I'll email you as soon as we get there. Bon voyage, Jojo, said Grandpa Harry. Mrs. Briar brushed back a tear. Thanks, Dad. Love you. Ethan and Ella stood frozen in their spots. Grandpa Harry leaned down and patted them on their heads. I don't want to say goodbye,
I don't want to say goodbye.
Ella said, choking back a sob. I don't want to say goodbye either, Ethan sniffed. Then let's say arrivederci instead, Grandpa Harry suggested. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
The twins asked. It's Italian for see you again, their grandfather explained. A few minutes later, the family piled into the taxi. As it pulled out of the driveway, Ethan and Ella turned around in their seats. Grandpa Harry stood on the lawn, waving. The twins waved back. Arrivederci, they whispered. They kept waving until they couldn't see Grandpa Harry anymore. Ella clutched her journal. Ethan held his gold coin tightly. After all that, both Ella and Ethan really were excited about the big new adventure that was about to unfold. They had sights to see, people to meet, and maybe, just maybe, more mysteries to solve. The end.
Read that.
Glossary. God Morgen is Swedish for good morning. Bon voyage is French for have a good trip. Arrivederci is Italian for see you again. If you like this book, please click subscribe to be notified of my other audiobook recordings.